Greetings, everybody. It's Jim, and today's a special episode of the unboxing series as well as the metagame series. I mean, I've done so many videos for the metagames that they deserve their own playlist, and rightfully so. Not complaining whatsoever. But today's unboxing is going to link directly to my favorite fantasy role playing game of all time, and that's In the Labyrinth from the Fantasy Trip series. All right, now back when it was in the 80s, when it was looking like this, and I love this cover, quite honestly. I wish they'd go through drive through RPG or some print on demand and just say, here's the same version of the new rules with this cover. I'd buy it in an instant. I definitely would. I think a lot of other people would too. So maybe that'll be an option. I'll have to talk to Steve and say, hey, I ever so often I throw him little marketing ideas, peg him with him. I'm sure he gets hit all the time from Philip Reed, his CEO, all the time too, because I swear that guy's got some marketing in his blood. But that would be a good idea. Anyway, I'm digressing. Back when it was in the Labyrinth here in the 80s, Howard Thompson, who owned Metagaming at the time, had some criticisms of Steve's vision. He said it was a little bit too complicated. Now, the only way I could think it would be complicated, because the game runs like silk. It's easy. But there are parts where it does bog down with questions and, stops everybody up. And I'm probably thinking that's hand-to-hand and maybe pike weapons and maybe a few other things. But definitely, he wanted it to be a lot more simple. Now, when Steve Jackson split to form his own company, Howard Thompson still owned the rights to In the Labyrinth. However, he believed so much in his vision that he developed Dragons of Underearth right here. So I will be making another video about the differences between his vision and In the Labyrinth, Steve's vision. And I understand where he was going with it, but we'll get more into that in later. But for right now, today, I'm going to be unboxing a mint version of Dragons of Underearth from Metagaming. All right, everybody, here we have our Dragons of Underearth. And as always, please like and subscribe. It's the best way to get this video out to everybody. I work in social media. I can't tell you enough how hard and how important it is to do that. So hard to open these up without the insides getting crushed a little bit. I tried to do what I did on the other metagames like this, and it just doesn't like to go like that. Now, the first thing to note is it is a big box, okay? Unlike Melee and Wizard and Death Test and all that, they chose to go with a bigger box set. Was it necessary? I'm not sure. I mean, we're looking at the rules here, okay? Designed by Keith Gross. It wasn't even designed by Howard Thompson. That was interesting enough. But he was a developer, so, he's basically saying, directing traffic here. And it is copyrighted by Games Research Group, which is weird because, of course, this is still under the metagaming umbrella there. So I don't understand how the companies technically work there. But we've got the game here, and I do know, and here's the combat module, which has advanced rules and the scenarios that are in the game. Now, one thing is that this is not the small booklet that you would have. Now, probably part of that is because this is, well, they count this as 16 pages here, and then they start over and call it 1, 2, 3, and then 16 pages here. So this is a 32-page booklet. And it looks like if this was really shrunk down or given 2 booklets in the old Melee type, I guess that's why they justify the bigger book. So here we have the counters, and these are pretty neat. And one thing that's caught my eye right away is there's a gargoyle. That has to be a gargoyle, and it's a 3-hex creature. It's not a 1-hex creature. So I found that interesting. That is very interesting indeed. But that's one thing. Now unlike the Fantasy Trip, they have little goblins, but they're not 1-hex creatures. I don't think that affects gameplay. It's just still going to be 1-hex per. But just for the sake of playability and just the feel of it, I guess they're making them different sizes. So these are like maybe 3/4 of an inch or less, or this is like 5/8 of an inch. These definitely aren't 1-inch creatures, but they're really cool looking. Definitely, I got a octopus here right away. They give you a good mix, and it's pretty cool. And they give you a few 2-hex creatures here as well that aren't in the regular Melee. So basically, if you wanted more counters, if you already played the Fantasy Trip, which is funny enough because they still owned the Fantasy Trip. They did not. When Steve left, he did not take it with him. Actually, he wanted Howard Thompson was like, "Give me $250,000,000," and I kid you not, that's what he wanted. I don't know if there was that much money in it. That sounds more like a you can't have it kind of thing. But basically, that's pretty interesting how the counters work there. And so here we got the map board. Now I've already seen this map board a little bit, and I found it somewhat confusing. For as simplistic as Howard said he wanted to make the game, then you get a map like this and you compare it to Melee, and it's like, okay, what's going on here? Now the battles in the back are not a death test. It's not a. These are just scenarios. So here we've got the back for the attackers. You got the defenders over here, and you got these little things here that look like wall sections. And of course, an entranceway here with complete wall sections. So I don't know what these exactly are. I assume they are walls. But I'm wondering, I mean, is this the same map board every time? Or are the scenarios asking you to ignore certain things? And there are shaded areas on it as well. So what do these mean? If this is trying to be a catch-all map, I consider it pretty confusing on that area. I mean, you could probably figure it out, but the idea that, I mean, especially if they ask you to ignore certain things of terrain on the board, that will be weird. I'm not saying that the shaded parts are tough. That wouldn't be. But definitely, if you're asked to forget what these are during a scenario, that might be. I guess I'm going to have to find out more. But I really look forward to it. I definitely look forward to telling you the differences between their vision of Dragons of Underearth and Steve's vision of the fantasy trip. I definitely know that I'm not complaining about the way things turned out, but I do want to see where Howard's vision was going. So that's Dragons of Underearth, and I'll see you next video.